The hum of my custom-built workstation was the only sound in my minimalist home office. On the left monitor, a spreadsheet displayed the quarterly dividends for Aegis Global, the private equity firm I founded in secret 5 years ago. On the right, a barrage of text messages from my ex-mother-in-law, Beatrice, flickered like a persistent, annoying insect. Heidi, I've looked at the brochure for the community summer camp. It's free. Even someone with your limited resources can manage to drop Sarah off. She's bored when she stays with us. She needs stimulation, not your lazy parenting. I didn't reply. I took a slow sip of my lukewarm black coffee, watching a $4.2 million transaction clear on my screen. My thumb hovered over the block button, but I hesitated. In the world of high-stakes finance, information is currency. Let her talk. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice fragment. I've already spoken to my son. Marcus agrees. If you can't afford to give Sarah a proper summer, maybe she should spend the next 2 months exclusively with us. We have the means to provide a lifestyle you clearly can't. Don't be selfish just because you're struggling with your little full-time job. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair, staring at the ceiling. Marcus. My ex-husband. The man who hasn't sent a single cent of child support in 14 months, claiming his startup was in a growth phase. In reality, his startup was a sinking ship kept afloat only by a series of predatory loans from a firm he didn't realize I owned. I looked at Sarah, who was currently in the living room, happily focused on her advanced robotics kit, a $500 set she'd begged for instead of the camp. She had tutoring twice a week and a private dance coach who came to the house. She wasn't understimulated. She was thriving away from the school bullies she'd faced last summer. My phone chimed a third time. An email notification. It was from the board of directors at Summit Crest Resorts, the luxury mountain retreat where Beatrice planned to host her grandparents' summer gala next month. Dear Madam Chair, we are awaiting your final approval on the lease renewal for the Beatrice V. Collection boutique located in our East Wing. The tenant is currently 3 months behind on rent, but claims a family connection to the ownership. A thin, cold smile touched my lips. Beatrice didn't just shop at Summit Crest. She ran a failing luxury boutique there, funded entirely by credit cards and the illusion of Marcus's success. She thought she was the queen of that mountain. She had no idea I bought the entire resort last December through a shell company. I typed a short, 1-sentence reply to the board. Hold all renewals. I will be visiting the property personally this weekend to audit the tenants. Beatrice wanted to talk about means? I was about to show her exactly what it looks like when the poor daughter-in-law stops subsidizing her delusions. I stood up, the hardwood floor cool beneath my bare feet, and walked to the window. The storm was coming, and for the first time in years, I was the one directing the wind. The drive to Summit Crest was a quiet 3-hour journey. I drove my 10-year-old SUV, the leather-worn but the engine meticulously maintained. Beside me, Sarah was engrossed in a digital coding module on her tablet. No flashy logos, no screaming brand names, just quiet, focused intelligence. That was the legacy I was building for her, far from the toxic vanity of her father's family. As we pulled into the gravel driveway of the resort, the towering timber frame architecture of the main lodge loomed over us. It was a masterpiece of rustic luxury, and as of 6 months ago, every single beam and stone belonged to me. I checked into a standard suite under my maiden name, keeping a low profile. I had a meeting with the resort manager, Mr. Henderson, in an hour, but first I had a family appointment. Beatrice had summoned me to her boutique, the Beatrice V. Collection, claiming she had official papers for Sarah's summer enrollment that I needed to sign. Walking into the East Wing was like entering a different world. Gold-leafed mirrors, velvet carpets, and the cloying scent of expensive perfume. Beatrice was standing at the center of her shop, draped in a silk scarf that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent if he actually paid it. "You're late," she snapped, not even looking up from her ledger. "And you're dressed like, well, like someone who cleans offices for a living. Honestly, Heidi, have some self-respect when you come to a place like this." I didn't flinch. I let my gaze wander over the racks of overpriced garments. Most of the stock was from last season, and the shop was eerily empty of customers. "I'm here for the papers, Beatrice. Let's keep this professional." She pulled out a stack of documents. "These are for the elite junior leadership camp. It's $8,000 for the 8-week program. Since you clearly can't afford it, Marcus and I have decided to sponsor Sarah. All you have to do is sign over temporary guardianship for the summer so we can handle the logistics. My eyes narrowed. Guardianship. This wasn't about a summer camp, this was a legal power play. The school camp was free last week. Now it's an $8,000 leadership program? I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous low octave. Things change when you have means, Heidi, she smirked, finally looking at me with pure disdain. Marcus's startup just secured a massive bridge loan. We're celebrating tonight at the gala. If you sign these, I might even let you stay for a drink in the staff lounge. Just then, my phone vibrated. A text from Mr. Henderson. Madam Chair, the audit of the East Wing tenants is complete. The boutique in Unit 402 is $45,000 in arrears. Shall I proceed with the lockout notice? I looked at Beatrice, who was tapping her manicured nails impatiently on the glass counter. She was so confident in her borrowed throne. I won't be signing those, Beatrice. Sarah has her own plans, I said calmly. You're a selfish, bitter woman, she hissed, her face contorting. You deny your daughter a future just to spite us? Look around you. This is the world Sarah belongs in, not your cramped little life. I have influence here. I could have you escorted out of this resort with one phone call. I tucked my phone into my pocket. Is that so? Then by all means, Beatrice. Make the call. Let's see who leaves first. The grand ballroom of Summit Crest was a sea of black ties and silk gowns. Crystal chandeliers cast a deceptive glow over people who measured worth by the labels on their wrists. I stood in the shadows of the mezzanine, wearing a simple, tailored charcoal dress. No jewelry, no flash, just the quiet authority of someone who doesn't need to scream to be heard. Down on the main floor, Marcus was holding a glass of vintage champagne, surrounded by a group of investors he'd been wooing. He looked every bit the successful tech mogul, but his expensive suit was a rental and his success was a house of cards. Beatrice was beside him, draped in more lace than a Victorian funeral, preening like a queen. Gentlemen, Marcus's voice boomed. This bridge loan from the Apex Group is just the beginning. We're expanding to 3 cities by Q4. Success isn't just about hard work. It's about having the right pedigree. I felt Sarah's hand slip into mine. She was wearing her favorite simple cotton dress, her eyes scanning the room with a maturity that far surpassed her father's. Mom, she whispered, why does Dad lie so much? Because, honey, when you have no foundation, you have to build walls out of air, I replied softly. I checked my watch. 8 p.m., exactly on time. The heavy oak doors at the back of the hall opened. Mr. Henderson, the resort manager, marched in with 2 security guards and a legal representative. The room went quiet. Beatrice's face lit up, thinking they were there to pay her homage. Ah, Mr. Henderson, Beatrice called out, waving her hand. Just in time for our toast. Marcus was just explaining how we're going to revitalize the East Wing boutique. Mr. Henderson didn't smile. He didn't even slow down. He walked straight past the investors, straight past Marcus, and stopped directly in front of Beatrice. Mrs. Vance, Henderson said, his voice echoing in the silent hall. I'm afraid there will be no toasts. Per the instructions of the board of directors, we are serving you an immediate lockout notice for Unit 402. You are $45,000 in arrears, and your lease renewal has been officially denied. The color drained from Beatrice's face so fast it was almost cinematic. This is a mistake. My son is about to secure a multi-million-dollar loan from Apex. Actually, I said, stepping out from the shadows of the mezzanine and walking slowly down the marble staircase. My voice was calm, conversational, but it sliced through the room like a blade. Apex Group is a subsidiary of Aegis Global, and as the founder and chair of Aegis, I've just reviewed Marcus's growth phase data. I reached the bottom of the stairs, standing 10 feet away from my stunned ex-husband. The bridge loan is cancelled, Marcus. You misrepresented your assets. That's not a startup. That's a liability. And Beatrice? The lease isn't just denied, the unit is being cleared tonight. Heidi? Marcus stammered, his glass trembling. You're Aegis? That's impossible. You work in an office. I own the office, Marcus. I own the building. And right now, I gestured to the sprawling luxury around us. I own the very floor you're standing on. The silence in the ballroom was heavy, broken only by the sharp, rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. Marcus's face had turned a sickly shade of gray. The investors he'd been lying to for months slowly began to back away, their eyes filled with cold realization. They weren't looking at a tech mogul anymore. They were looking at a fraud. Heidi, wait, Marcus stammered, stepping forward, his voice cracking. We're family. This must be some kind of misunderstanding. If you're the chair, then you can just approve the loan. We can make this work. Think about Sarah's future. I looked at him, my expression as unyielding as granite. I am thinking about Sarah's future, Marcus. That's why I'm keeping her as far away from your delusions as possible. You haven't paid a cent in child support in over a year. Yet you have enough for a rental tuxedo and a gala ticket. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice. Beatrice let out a strangled sob, clutching at her silk scarf. You can't do this, Heidi. The boutique is my life. Where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to live? Perhaps you should have spent less time worrying about Sarah's understimulation and more time worrying about your own ledger, I replied. You wanted her to go to a leadership camp to learn discipline? Well, here is your first lesson in accountability. Mr. Henderson, please ensure the locks are changed by midnight. All remaining inventory will be seized to offset the debt. You're a monster, Beatrice shrieked, her mask finally shattering. You've been watching us struggle while you sat on millions. How could you be so cold? I didn't watch you struggle, Beatrice. I watched you pretend, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that felt louder than her scream. I gave you every chance to be a grandmother. You chose to be a warden. You chose to value labels over your own flesh and blood. Now, those labels are all you have left. I turned my back on them, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. I didn't look back as the security guards began to escort them toward the exit. I didn't need to see their humiliation to feel the weight lift from my shoulders. Outside, the mountain air was crisp and clean. Sarah was waiting for me by the car, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the resort lights. She didn't ask about the drama. She didn't ask about the money. She just took my hand and leaned her head against my arm. Can we go home now, Mom? She asked quietly. Yes, Sarah, I replied, starting the engine. We're going home. And this summer, you're going to do exactly what you want to do. Because the only person you ever have to impress is yourself. True power is never found in the roar of a crowd or the flash of a diamond. It is cultivated in the quiet spaces of integrity and the courage to stand alone. Wealth, when used as a weapon of ego, is merely a gilded cage that eventually rusts and collapses under the weight of its own vanity. People like Marcus and Beatrice spend their lives chasing shadows, believing that worth can be bought, only to realize too late that respect is earned through character, not currency. In a world obsessed with the show, the greatest revenge is simply living a life so authentic and grounded that the lies of others have no place to take root. My daughter will grow up knowing that her value isn't tied to a summer camp or a brand name, but to the strength of her spirit and the depth of her kindness. That is the only inheritance that truly matters.